Chapter 466 to 467. After the transplantation operation was completed, Kuroto discussed his guess with Shursui and Itachi. Upon listening to Kuroto's guess, Itachi asked doubtfully, if Kuroto-san's guess is correct, it means that Hokage-sama not only knows about Akatsuki's plans, but he also has a rough understanding of the time Akatsuki will attack. Such a piece of secret information, how can Hokage-sama know about it? Shursui also said, did Hokage-sama also plant a spy in the Akatsuki organization? The reason for using the word also has only one meaning, that being the identity of Uchiha Shinichi. Shursui by now is more than certain that Uchiha Shinichi is a spy Kuroto-san has planted within the Akatsuki organization. After all those pieces of intelligence that Kuroto-san knows have to come from somewhere, right? And Shinichi once gave them information about Shino and Anchor Vantion. Although Uchiha Tsukihai never explicitly stated that Shinichi is a spy, and that was only a one-time thing, Shursui had some other thoughts. Then there's also the fact that Shinichi did not cause too much damage to the Tri-Alliance at the Summit War, and coupled with a few other theories, Shursui is certain that Shinichi is a spy. After all, Kuroto never talked about Shinichi as a threat. This can only mean that Uchiha Shinichi is a spy, otherwise, how else did he survive against Kuroto-san back when he defected? Kuroto did not point out Shursui's also, and Itachi did not comment on it either. The two of them consciously ignored it. Then Kuroto said, unlikely, Akatsuki had suffered a serious loss not long ago. Their base Amigakure was completely destroyed, and their leader Nagato almost died. Now they would definitely be very careful, so infiltrating into Akatsuki as a spy would be very difficult in my opinion, much less be aware of their plan of action. Even Shinichi, who has already become a trusty member of the Akatsuki, does not have the opportunity to pass back any piece of information. So how can Sandai manage to make his spy not only infiltrate the Akatsuki organization, but also pass back the intelligence in such a sensitive period? After pondering a little, Itachi said, which means Hokage-sama must have some external means to get intelligence on Akatsuki's movements. Kuroto nodded slightly. I suspect the same. Most likely, there is some other organization that is collaborating with the Akatsuki, and Sandai-sama has either managed to make someone infiltrate that other organization or he has managed to sway some of the members of the second organization to side with him, and this spy, or this someone is the source of intelligence. The second organization can be any other shinobi village, or some other organization, or perhaps some individuals. Kuroto isn't sure as to who exactly are they. But this possibility is the most reasonable. Shursui asked, if that's the case, what should we do? If Akatsuki were to attack Konoha, it would cause serious losses to the village. Kuroto nodded, took out the training plan Itachi sent him about 2 months ago, and said, I am giving the two of you a new mission. Visit all these places marked on the attached map, and search them thoroughly. Shursui took the pages that Kuroto handed to him, and was taken aback. He obviously knew what these pages are. These pages are part of the training plan Itachi, created to improve his strength as per Kuroto's instructions. But what's strange is that everything related to actually improving strength, including taijutsu, shurikenjutsu, genjutsu, dojutsu etc. has been crossed out, leaving only the part that recorded the locations of places that had some connection with the Uchiha clan at some point in time, before the establishment of Konoha. Itachi also looked and was surprised. Kuroto-san, are you serious about this? Kuroto nodded and explained, while researching about my own Kusanagi sword, I happened to learn about 2 artifacts that once existed in the shinobi world. One of the 2 artifacts is called Sword of Tatsuka, a variant of the Kusanagi sword that is capable of sealing the targets it pierces through inside a genjutsu-like world of drunken dreams for all eternity. I used various means to search for it, but couldn't really find it, but there was a clue I managed to obtain, and it pointed toward the Uchiha clan. So if my guess is correct, then this sword is very likely to be hidden somewhere in the Uchiha clan. And perhaps only an Uchiha can find this sword. Itachi was stunned and remembered various past instances in a flash. No wonder you mentioned the Sword of Tatsuka and Yata Mirror several times to me. I did some personal research on these 2 artifacts, but there wasn't much I could find about them. Kuroto nodded and said, if we want to deal with the masked Uchiha, who now has access to Kamui in both eyes, then we would definitely need this sword. And the 2 of you are the only ones who can find this sword. It doesn't really matter who among the 2 of you find it, but one of you must find this sword at all cost. It is very, very important, at least I think it is. Shursui said with a worried tone. But what about the village? For now, Sword of Tatsuka might be our only method to deal with the masked Uchiha. I am not sure if anything else is going to work. After all, Tsukihai has already once killed him, but he did not die because he used Izanagi, and there is no telling how many times he can keep using Izanagi, as we don't know how many disposables 3 Tomo Sharingan he has. Resolving the threat of this masked Uchiha would at least put us in a better situation. So don't worry about the safety of the village. Hokage-sama has his own plans, and he would do his all to protect the village. Rather than wasting time and effort on weakening the enemy, Kuroto prefers to focus on improving himself. As long as he is strong enough, no one would be a threat, because Kuroto has both direction and plan. So as long as he is given enough time, Kuroto has confidence in reaching the top of the shinobi world. Once he reaches the top, no one can threaten him, and he calmly deals with everything with just a few flicks of his fingers. So aside from their enmity, Akatsuki and Amatsukami are also in a race. A race to ascend, whether Project Godhood is completed earlier, or Project Tsuki no Mi is completed earlier will determine everything. Whether Kuroto achieves Kekiai Mora earlier, or Nagato Obito Madara becomes the Jinchuriki of Jubi earlier will determine everything. If Kuroto achieves Kekiai Mora earlier, then all the problems the shinobi world is facing will not be problems anymore. But if Akatsuki were to revive Jubi earlier and any one of Nagato Obito Madara becomes the Jinchuriki of Jubi first, then Kagaya would come back to life and Kuroto would have no choice but to face Kagaya, and obviously Kuroto would die in that situation, because he would be no different from a slightly stronger cannon fodder, as the current Kuroto is far from reaching the level Sasuke and Naruto after they received Rakuto Senin's chakra. Therefore, other than preventing the revival of Jubi, Kuroto doesn't care about what actions Akatsuki is taking, and he is not very interested in wasting his energy on every action that Akatsuki takes. While Shursui and Itachi were thinking a few things, a ninja crow flew in and landed on Kuroto's shoulder. Taking out the letter from the crow's stomach, Kuroto opened it, and after taking a look, he immediately said to both Itachi and Shursui, "Pakura seems to have already arrived in the village." Already, Itachi and Shursui were surprised. Kuroto was no less surprised than Itachi and Shursui, and said, "It can only mean that the threat of Akatsuki is reaching closer. And since Pakura has already arrived in Konoha, it also means that Sandame-sama's plan is proceeding smoothly. The two of you need not worry about it, and focus your attention on finding Sword of Tatsuka and Yada Mirror." Itachi nodded and Shursui nodded with a serious expression. "Leave it to us, Kuroto-san." Kuroto nodded, then the three separated. Itachi and Shursui left for the Uchiha clan in order to prepare for the mission, while Kuroto returned back to his home. Of course, he did not forget to instruct the two of them to leave behind Shadow/Crow clones, because, given the state of emergency, they wouldn't be allowed to leave, especially Shursui. His combat power is indispensable for whatever Sandame-sama is planning. That is why he wouldn't be allowed to leave, no matter how important mission. This is the reason why Shursui has been staying in the village for so long and has not performed any Umbu mission. His presence alone is very important for the village's safety. So, if the two want to leave for finding the two artifacts, then obviously they will have to leave behind Shadow/Crow clone, so that they act as replacements. After arriving at his home, Kuroto took out the storage scroll that he prepared 2 months ago. The objective is very clear. Kuroto plans to sell this scroll to Shimura Danzo for a good price. Given his current economic situation, Kuroto is in some serious need of funds. After all, the creation of Wind Nature clone, along with the Kazekage clone that is being cultivated, has again consumed a lot of his funds. So by selling this scroll to Shimura Danzo, Kuroto is shooting 2 birds with 1 stone. After preparing the disguise and leaving a shadow clone again in the village, Kuroto quietly sneaked out of Konoha. In a mountainous forest outside Konoha, a figure can be seen walking step by step through the forest. The figure is dressed in a midnight black cloak with a complex golden pattern made of up-gold thread, the symbol of wind chakra nature on the chest, and 5 chakra natures at the back surrounding the yin-yang symbol, along with a wind pattern mask to cover the face. He is slowly walking towards a hidden cave in the distance. Whoosh whoosh. At this time, 2 figures dressed in Konoha Umbu disguise appeared in front and behind the figure, and immediately launched an attack on him from both front and back. At the same time, a third Umbu sitting on top of a tree at a distance away was ready to throw shuriken and kill him should the figure jump upwards. However, before the 2 Tonto could reach closer to the figure, both the blades stopped midway, and not just the blades, even the bodies of the 2 Umbu stopped as they were entangled by iron sand that completely imprisoned the 2 Umbu. The figure did not care about the attack from the 2 Umbu. He turned in the direction of the third Umbu, who has changed his tactics and was about to fire a lightning jutsu at him, but stopped midway upon listening to the words of the figure. "Tell Shimura Danzo that Amatsukami wishes to make a deal with him." "You? Are you? Are you a member of Amatsukami?" The third Umbu exclaimed in shock upon the other party's mention of Shimura Danzo and Amatsukami. The 2 Umbu who were imprisoned by iron sand were also flabbergasted now, and because the iron sand covering them was squeezing them tighter and tighter, so they were already breathless. "Indeed, this one is a member of the famed Amatsukami," nodded the figure. Disguised as Fujin, it is undeniably Hyuga Kuroto controlling the Wind Nature Clone A. The reason he came here is obviously to make a deal with Shimura Danzo, at the same time spend some time in Wind Nature Clone of his. The third Umbu, who was sitting on the tree, was about to say something, but before he could, one of the Umbu Fujin had captured spoke. What does a member of Amatsukami want from Konoha? I must alert Danzo-sama that someone of Amatsukami is here before this man makes any other move, thought the third Umbu as he started to print hand seals. But before he could continue, iron sand appeared out of the ground and covered him too. At this time, Fujin tilted his head to the side, then said, "Did this one not mention it before? This one is here as a representative of Amatsukami to make a deal with Shimura Danzo." The third Umbu, who was also entangled by Fujin and was now brought close to him, immediately asked, "What kind of a deal? I wonder if this one should talk about the deal with a mere subordinate," muttered Fujin as he walked forward and removed the mask of the third Umbu. And looking at the face under the mask, he said, It turns out you are not a shinobi Kuin, but a kunoichi-chan, and a beautiful one at that. The one under the mask is a young kunoichi about 15 to 16 years of age. She has long sky-blue hair, a fair appearance, and blue pupilless eyes of the same color as her hair. Although, when it comes to the chest part, she is as flat as a board. A pity. Although she couldn't see the other party's eyes, her instincts told her that her chest was being looked down, and feeling this, the kunoichi gritted her teeth and roared, "I am still developing, you bastard!" And instantly lightning appeared on her body, which removed the iron sand covering her. The very next instant, she drew out her blade from behind and fiercely waved it towards Fujin. Fujin obviously dodged all her slashes with perfect ease, then locked her movements so she could no longer move and said, Now, don't be so fierce, Bishojo-chan. Although this one likes women who take the lead, this is neither the right time nor the right place. Currently, this one is only here to make a deal with Shimura Danzo. So go and inform him that a member of Amatsukami is here, Bishojo-chan." The kunoichi had a light blush upon hearing right time and right place, but she immediately recovered and snorted coldly. But knowing that she couldn't defeat the guy, she stopped struggling, but said nonetheless, "He is not here." Fujin wasn't surprised and said, "Really?" Then after a bit of thinking he said again, "Well, if Bishojo-chan doesn't want to tell him of this one's visit, then no matter. This one will personally go all the way and verify. It's not too troublesome anyway." And after speaking so, he started walking towards the hidden cave. He obviously knew that the kunoichi was lying. The kunoichi's face stiffened. "Please wait a moment." Fujin smirked under his mask, and after turning around, he asked with a clueless tone, "Is there something Bishojo-chan wanted to say to this one?" I will go and inform him that someone from Amatsukami is here," said the kunoichi. Fujin nodded. "Then please hurry, Bishojo-chan. This one's schedule is very tight." The kunoichi didn't reply, but she disappeared and hurried in the direction of the hidden cave. Looking at her back from a distance, Fujin thought, "This one wonders what's her story?" From the look in her eyes and from her actions, it doesn't seem that Bishojo-chan is very loyal to Shimura Danzo. Yet she is willing to work for him. This one wonders what is Shimura Danzo offering Bishojo-chan in return. From a rough understanding from the short bout, Fujin determined that the strength of the kunoichi is about the level of a Tokubetsu Jonin, which is not too bad considering that she is only about 15 to 16 years old. Inside one of the rooms in the hidden cave, Orochimaru was leaning on the wall with his hands folded over his chest and said in a sly tone, I wonder why you are still allowed to roam free, with the number of terrible things you have done. The old man should have already disposed of you, and yet you roam free, even though your root has been disbanded, and yet you have this much manpower in your hands. I wonder what is he thinking." The way Orochimaru spoke, he seems to be trying to intentionally provoke Shimura Danzo. "Orochimaru, pay attention to what you speak in my presence." Danzo slammed his crutch on the ground, and immediately a violent chakra burst out of his body, and several cracks spread on the floor. Feeling this violent chakra, Orochimaru narrowed his eyes and thought inwardly, "It appears that my guess was correct. Shimura Danzo is around the same age as Sandame, so his body should be going downhill. Not to mention that Danzo's strength is inferior to Sandame Hokage. So the fact that he, who should be old and weak, has such high chakra reserves proved that Orochimaru's guess is indeed correct." And he asked with a surprised tone, "So you succeeded, huh?" Shimura Danzo did not deny it, and nodded with a solemn expression. "Although it was difficult, I was finally able to control Shodame-sama's cells." The reason why Danzo did not hide is that he wants Orochimaru to know that he is not as weak as Orochimaru may think. This is necessary for their continued cooperation. "Sure enough," muttered Orochimaru as he looked at Danzo with a bit of respect. Orochimaru may as well be considered a crazy and madman, but in fact, he is a very cautious person. The cautiousness has been ingrained in his bones. After all, the ultimate goal he pursues is immortality, and for that, he is unwilling to take risks that would result in his death. So any experiment that has a high mortality rate is dispensable for him. But despite his cautious nature, Orochimaru can't help but admire those who are willing to take extreme risks to change their destiny. Of course, admiration is only slight, because most of the time these people are foolish and tend to overestimate themselves. Danzo observed the changes in Orochimaru, then after a bit of silence he said, "Orochimaru, you were part of the Akatsuki organization, and you are an old acquaintance of Hiriko. You must have the scroll of Chimera Jutsu in your hand. Trade it with me, as long as it's not too much, then I am willing to satisfy your greed." Orochimaru licked his lips and was about to speak. Whoosh. But before Orochimaru could speak, a root umbu appeared next to Danzo and whispered words to Danzo. Danzo frowned upon hearing the words of the root umbu, and his expression changed suddenly by the time the root umbu was finished. After a while of thinking, he questioned, "Are you certain?" Danzo was silent, then looked at Orochimaru from the corner of his eye, then instructed the root umbu, "All right, bring him in." "Yes, Danzo-sama." The root umbu nodded with a respectful tone and immediately disappeared from the room. With the root umbu gone, Orochimaru, who was standing on the side, asked, "Who is coming?" Danzo said with a playful tone, "Why don't you try guessing? Someone can make you temporarily suppress the desire for Chimera Jutsu. The identity of the other party must be extraordinary." After a pause, Orochimaru continued, but with a chilling smile, especially since Danzo looked at him before instructing the root umbu. "It wouldn't happen to be a member of Akatsuki organization, right?" Danzo shook his head. "No. If it was Akatsuki, then it would have been Danzo running towards the village, not inviting the other party to his base of operation." Orochimaru thought about it, and he too felt that it wouldn't be Akatsuki organization, so he asked again, "Then is it the Amatsukami?" "I wonder," muttered Danzo, then moved his gaze towards the entrance of the room. After a while of waiting, A figure in very familiar clothing and a wind-patterned mask walked into the room under the escort of 3 Root Umbu. The previous Root Umbu was in the front, while 2 more were behind him. Orochimaru immediately cast his gazes and looked up and down at the figure of Fujin. Fujin also spotted the figure of Orochimaru in the room and can't help but think inwardly in surprise. Why is Orochimaru-sama here? Shimura Danzo stood up, his one hand already on the seal of his right hand, and he asked, "Who are you?" Danzo's little movements were obviously noticed by Fujin with his Byakugan, but he did not care and said, "Shimura-san may refer to this one as Fujin of the Amatsukami." Fujin. Danzo and Orochimaru both chewed out the name at the same time. By now everyone knows that each member of Amatsukami has a code, and this code is not only a name, but also represents the member's main chakra nature. For example, Suijin of the Water style with Ice Release Kekii Genkai, Homusubi of the Fire style with an unknown Golden Fire type Kekii Genkai, and Sharingan. The person in front of the two has the code name Fujin, so his main chakra nature has to be Wind. So he has to be the user of Wind style, who has already made several appearances in the shinobi world, but never interacted with anyone. And if he is the same one, then the Kekii Genkai he uses is without a doubt Magnet Release. Danzo did not relax his vigilance and said, "How do you prove that you are a member of Amatsukami and not an imposter?" Fujin chuckled. "Why don't Shimura-san ask his subordinates?" This one thinks that Shimura-san's subordinates would be willing to prove that this one is original and not an imposter. Danzo frowned and continued, "I must confirm myself. If Shimura-san is so doubtful, then this one shall comply to his request." As soon as Fujin's words were finished, Iron Sand rushed out of the ground and tried to pull him under the ground. Danzo's figure immediately flashed away, and he barely avoided the Iron Sand, then had a thoughtful look on his face. He is using Magnet Release. Maybe he really is a member of Amatsukami. But when did he transfer his Iron Sand under the ground? I didn't even notice. He is certainly strong as the rumors suggest. But how strong exactly? I have no method of knowing this without a fight. Should I capture him, it would certainly be beneficial for Konoha. But there's no guarantee that I will be able to do so without revealing all my cards. Or should I send a signal to Hiruzen? No, if it is revealed that I am working with Orochimaru, then it would be more troublesome. Moreover, other members of Amatsukami can also be present in the surroundings. And if a fight breaks out here, who knows what will Orochimaru do? Well, given the fact that he is here to talk about something, I suppose I can talk. I can also think about what to do with him in the meantime. Thinking so, Danzo said, "So, why is Amatsukami looking for an old man like me?" Fujin said, "This one is here as a representative of Amatsukami to make a deal with Shimura-san." "A deal? What kind of deal?" asked Danzo with a frown. With so little information on Amatsukami, he isn't even sure what would interest Amatsukami. Fujin nodded and explained, "Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage of Konoha with his policies has disappointed Amatsukami. He neither has the strength, nor the courage to be the leader of the strongest shinobi village. For the future of this shinobi world, Konoha needs a new Hokage, someone courageous enough to stand against the wind, and Amatsukami has chosen Shimura-san for this purpose." Orochimaru's expression changed. He certainly agreed on the part that Konoha needs a new Hokage for a better and more glorious future. But why does Amatsukami care about Konoha's future? And what kind of deal are they talking about? Danzo had the same thought, except for a few extra ones, but calming his emotions, he asked again, "And why should I believe a mercenary organization? After all, his doubts are reasonable." Danzo can guess that Amatsukami probably wants to have some cooperation with Konoha. Their leader had talked about it with Hiruzen at Amage Cure, but Hiruzen did not respond immediately. So perhaps Amatsukami is disappointed with Hiruzen? But what's the guarantee that Amatsukami is not trying to take advantage of him? Fujin knew Danzo wouldn't trust him, but that's the intention. Fujin wants Danzo to focus on another thought of Hokage, cooperation, and disappointment, while Fujin himself will complete his main objective. With a smirk under his mask, Fujin said, "It certainly is not an easy task to trust us, which is why this one mentioned a deal. This one has learned through the grapevine that Shimura-san seems to have an interest in the Chimera Jutsu, created by Perfect Hiriko of the 5 style, Hiriko's alias. And this one has Chimera Jutsu with him, so if Shimura-san can afford it, this one is willing to sell Chimera Jutsu and a Chimera Bud to Shimura-san as a mark of sincerity." Danzo's expression changed. How does Amatsukami have Chimera Jutsu? Danzo had just proposed a deal to Orochimaru about Chimera Jutsu, and suddenly a member of Amatsukami came out of nowhere to his door, for some reason, with the exactly same jutsu. Obviously, this is going to make Danzo vigilant. And what did he mean by grapevine? I can be certain that very few know about my desire for Chimera Jutsu. So how does he know? Fujin said without hiding, "Some time ago this one killed Shino, who used to be a member of Amatsukami, and back then this one obtained Chimera Jutsu." Orochimaru immediately thought, so it really was Amatsukami who killed Shino. It must mean that Amatsukami has also acquired Anchor Vantion. Very few people knew about that floating fortress, and Orochimaru obviously did, while Danzo had a different thought. So they acquired from Shino. It must at least be genuine. And after a while of consideration, he asked, "And what does Amatsukami want in exchange for the scroll of Chimera Jutsu?" Fujin thought a little, then said, "How about 170 million ryo?" Danzo suddenly frowned. So cheap. Hearing Fujin's price, Danzo subconsciously began to have second thoughts. He began to wonder if the chimera jutsu in the hands of Amatsukami is even real or not.